Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Here we are again. I'm actually, by popular demand, I'm reading another of my poems. So it's called Humanity. I wrote these in 2009, so I didn't know as much as I know now. Actually, 2006, my correction, it's from my book. It's Humanity. Here lies the question: what, where, and when did we come to be? A puzzle. Can we find the answers? Oh, yes, we can. Look within. We have always been since time began. How can we not remember? Because, my friend, we do not question. Ask and you will receive. So difficult, yet so easy. A newborn baby, what a joy. So innocent, yet it knows so much. Have we been taught to complicate our lives? I think not. We have such knowledge. Look within their eyes, and yet life will take its toll. We, as humans, cannot yet comprehend the answers. Look, and you will see. Talk, and you will hear. Dream, and you will travel. And I signed it Zena in 2006. It's a long, beautiful journey. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sally Bernard, an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer. Welcome to Call Me Zena, a true story into the spiritual realms. Join me as I sit and discuss the journey of self-discovery and awakening with the help of my spirit guides. It's time to trust your intuition. This is your inner knowings. Through questions and points of conversation, I can help others feel empowered. With the ability to touch people's past lives, I help others connect and not feel alone. Sit with me and call in live, 888-994-4995.
Here we are, back again, different setting. I'm here again with my husband, Steve. So it's a call-in show, and anybody that wants to ask either one of us at this point a question, please call in. The number is 888-994-4995, Studio A, and I'm here to take your questions. Okay, here we go. Hopefully we're going to have a wonderful hour.
And Sally, thank you for reading that poem, Humanity. It's one of my favorites of yours, and I've read them all. And you speak about, in that poem, asking questions. You don't find out anything if you don't ask questions. So I hope we get a lot of people calling in today to ask questions. As Sally said, 888-994-4995, Studio A. I'll begin with one question. The other day, you saw a picture of my dear departed son and my former mother-in-law, the dear Estelle, and Scott loved him as a grandmother. How do you feel about their existence, and are they together, and are you getting any messages from Estelle and Scott at the moment?
Well, I'm glad you actually asked that question, because when we reconnected last year, it's about a year ago now, Steve, I was kind of getting messages for you. I just backtrack a little bit. You had lost your son, maybe it's about 9 years ago? Or
8 years ago, yeah.
My daughter, when we first met, had a terminal illness. She actually passed in July. So there was a connection there that we had. And as I can hear, I felt that I needed to give you some messages for you to understand maybe where I'm coming from as far as getting messages from your son. Not everybody believes this, and I totally understand it. So the validation that I was able to give you helped you understand that he's still around you. As the name Estelle came to me, which was your former,
my ex-wife's mother.
They were close. So I was getting that name too. Could that be coincidence? Yes, we could say it was coincidence, but it was validation for us to know that they were around you. Had I have met you and said, your son who departed is here, you would have probably had a hard time to understand that. So what I am able to do is get the validation for you to
not just you, but for people to keep an open mind that they are still around us. And that's very, very important. I feel very strongly about this message. So it helped you tremendously. And I was able to give you many things that I would not have known necessarily about Estelle too. So that opened your mind. And here you are 1 year later on my show. So
Yes, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, shall we open this up to maybe the studio? Do you have any questions or anything that someone would like to ask me?
Sadly, I lost my nephew on Saturday, and the normal question that everybody usually asks is, do you have a message and all of that. But I'm not going to go down that direction. I think that my biggest question is his family. I don't know them as well as I should have. Harry Anthony was distant with me because apparently when I lost my brother, it hurt him to speak to me. It was too much pain for him to bear, so I left that alone. But my biggest concern right now is his wife and 2 daughters. Do you have anything that you can help me with to deal with that situation?
Well, I feel, Freddie, obviously at this point, we're not going to contact him because I believe there is a resting period, but we will do later. But my feeling is, please contact them, reach out to them, because this is the message that I'm feeling very strongly. We all look at we take, I call departing, but we don't depart. We're still here in different ways. And sometimes, even though the remembrance of something, of someone, if we resemble that person that departed, and I actually feel that I'm getting this message, it's painful. It's not that they don't necessarily want to talk with you. It's just a painful process. So everybody accepts. We have to accept our departed, that they've gone, but we all take it differently. So my message to you is, please reach out. Do what you can, because for you, that's what's very important today, for you to do that. However, when you do that, how anybody reacts to that, it's up to them, because we're all on individual journeys at this point in our life. But as long as you feel you're doing the right thing, and I think that's really important for each one, not just in your situation. For me, I'm realizing that too. Reach out. Does that help you a little bit?
Absolutely, because I was, I did not contact them on Saturday when the occurrence happened because I wanted to sort of ground myself, the shock of when this happens. There was nothing I could do or say that was going to come out. And then when I did speak to her last night, we just broke down because the 2 of us know a little bit about Harry's history, and it was tough. So I'm hoping that in death, I hope he has the peace he didn't have in life. But it's important that you reach out, I guess, try to make it more bearable, because there are things now that she's going to have to do is to raise those 2 daughters by herself. I mean, not by herself, but without him. And I'm thinking about maybe being more involved in the girl's life, because maybe what I didn't get before, I can get now. So what you're saying is 100% correct.
Absolutely, Freddie. And everybody, we take, when people pass, we all take it differently. But ultimately, and I have said this many times on the show, the love that we have for one another, it never leaves. So just know, and I'm sorry for your loss, although you know how I feel, and I also lost my daughter. He's still there. He's still with you. But in order to get a message, I feel, and I mean, I'm not sure, but I feel that we need some sort of a resting period for a little while, but I'm happy to be able to contact him shortly, okay? But now my message is for you to reach out to your family. It's important. Do we have another question in the studio?
I do. My son is getting married next month, Sally. Any suggestions?
Okay. Do you have a specific, just enjoy the wedding, but the suggestion, do you have anything in mind that you might want to ask, or?
What's the best way to join 2 families in another state?
Okay. My immediate answer, and I know that from our wedding,
is when you have a table plan,
Yes.
put the two families in, put them together, one in, on a table together so they get to know one another. The hardest thing, and this is changing the subject slightly, is to figure out who should be sitting with whom. However, think about this now. When you're doing that, remember what I'm saying. Put families together. Your family and his family it's your son that's getting married, correct?
Correct.
And then put her family together. Mix them up. Mix them up. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, we spent the most time of anything else deciding who was going to be sitting with who at the wedding, and we changed our minds about 36 times.
But I have had very positive feedback. Whenever I sat anybody, they were delighted with their table.
Good.
So just bear that in mind and go by what I'm saying. You don't have to, but I think that would be a good idea for everybody to get to know one another. Thank you for the question, Dawn.
When people contact you for private readings, will you do them at their home, or are you going to be doing them here at the studio?
Yes, thank you for that question, because I am starting, because I'm getting many people calling in and asking me where I am available for a private reading. I'm going to be doing them here in the studio. I feel very much at home here. We know, as we have actually had first-hand information from the spirits coming in, as we've done this many times on the show, so it would be here. So if they can even call in here or contact me, which now I actually have a new email.
Right. Call me Zena 1111@gmail.com.
So if anybody listening or any of my followers, I am now available for private readings in the studio. I'm also available for you to call in, where I answer any question that you have. So please continue to do that too.
And
Thank you.
speaking about the studio and all the magic that happens here, how do you look at this place? How is it that all of these special people and mystical people can come together in one place, all by, just happening?
And I love that question, because we see this happening here. It's unfolding here before our eyes. I am meeting the most amazing people because we're opening up. And as Dawn and Freddie will tell you this too, Freddie and Dawn, you can see how many people, the connections that we're getting here is amazing. However, what we think here, they're listening to up there. I'm going to call them on the other side of the veil. So they are delighted. We don't necessarily see them, but they hear us. And how do you explain all these amazing connections that we're getting in this one place? As you had said, Freddie, and also Dawn, that people are coming in now that are much more interested in what I'm talking about. I believe in the law of attraction, so what we put out, we get coming back. And we're living proof of this right now in the studio. So, yes, this is a magical place. It's a magical place for everybody sitting here. I hope you're all feeling it. Okay. Let the magic continue. Any more questions? Do you have a question? Russ, I see you here. Hello.
Yes, hi. How
Hi.
are you today? Fine, thanks.
It's hard for me to see because of the lights.
But I can
Hi,
imagine.
nice to see
Yeah.
you.
When people cross over, what do they do? What activity are they involved in?
I actually love that question, but that would be maybe a 4-hour show.
Oh.
It's okay. No, that's fine. I appreciate that question. It's not unsimilar to here, but when they first cross over, from what I hear, and everybody knows of my guide Aldo, who explained this to me, is that you are greeted by someone. And actually what you learn here, you don't necessarily leave behind you when you go to the other side. You don't always have to remember, because we have a process of whether we have that choice. But if you've learned, as I am learning now, to maybe graduate and go to a higher dimension, what I'm learning, I will be greeted by someone who understands where I am coming from that point of view. Maybe a little higher or lower than somebody else. I will be there. So we continue. We continue with what we were doing here, but it's our choice. Just like we have free will here, we actually still have free will on the other side, but we don't have our bodies to pull us down. So we actually, I'm going to say, we have a great time,
But we're still learning. We never stop learning. We're learning here, we're learning on the other side. Depending on where we are, we have that choice of what we want to learn. So that continues with us until we come back in a reincarnation. I'm a strong believer in that, because we continue and we continue and we continue.
You say you have incarnated a number of times.
Yes.
Do you remember any of the times that you were here before?
Yes, I do. I mean, it's only in this, I knew what I knew from another lifetime many years ago, which was the Renaissance period. I was not aware of that, and I only kind of figured it out maybe 15 years ago. But I was lucky enough to, I guess it was my time to remember, because we can erase a lot of that so that we come in and learn, and we can learn better when we don't necessarily remember. But I'm beginning to remember, and my guide actually manifests himself here, which you know, and people that know me, his name was Aldo. And he was here to teach me of other lifetimes, because he had had a few lifetimes. But, and there's like a rule, although we don't really understand that, he could not tell me until I started to open up. And I did. And then I began, through drawings, to remember my lifetime of one that was a very significant one, because I'm drawing, as people know that tune into my show, of things from that particular life where I knew what I know now. I'm drawing many things from the Renaissance, which I had not seen, but he was here to be able to explain it. I believe you just saw that in my book. I did not know. He would go into a trance, although he knew, and would explain exactly what my drawings were. So to me, I have no doubt that we come back many, many times. I'm now remembering certain lifetimes. We don't necessarily have to remember our lifetimes. We need to remember the ones that may be significant for this particular lifetime. That's what's happened to me.
I get confused about the memory factor.
Okay.
Why don't we remember?
Well, this is a learning process. It's like going, let's say I go to school, or we all go to school to learn, but if suddenly we remembered everything and we didn't need a teacher, it's not going to have the same impact. So when we're ready, we start to remember. What we come in here to experience and learn, it could take 2 lifetimes, it could take 10. We have free will. But it's better, so I feel, and this is what they tell me, is to learn when you're here. But when you're ready, you begin to open up, which has happened to me, because I not only can hear, and I can certainly hear them from the other side, I was able to draw many things they were telling me. That was my time. It may not be somebody else's time, but it was my time. So I can only talk from my experience on that. Had I have come in remembering, it may not have had the same impact as it has now. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sally, I wanted to get real quick. I want you to touch on the fear that people have to come and actually ask a question.
Yes.
Because sometimes you're afraid to ask certain questions. I think that Russell's question was excellent. And a lot of people probably feel the same way about that. And they're afraid to ask. Can you elaborate a little bit about, for first timers that are watching and seeing, that there's really nothing to fear about coming forward and asking any type of question, correct?
Absolutely, because every question that someone asks, it's important. Even if it sounds that it's strange or silly to that person, please bring in the question to me. I am able to answer the best that I can most questions, as you know and you see. I've been having this show now for many months. But never fear that the question may be silly or it may not be relevant. I will answer. I am here. I'm not here to judge the question. I'm here to give the answer to that question. And that's very, very important. They just actually said that to me, because I would not have answered that way. But I feel very strongly about that.
Well, Katie just wrote in a question, is sleep paralysis evil? That's a bit above my pay grade. So.
Okay, I'll be happy to answer that. No, absolutely not. Because my viewers that know me know that I was astral projecting for 1 year, 3 times a week. If, and it did happen a few times, I woke up during that process, I was paralyzed. But it's not scary. So if anybody is having that particular sensation, hopefully I can answer what's going on. If you should wake up in the middle of a dream, mine was I could feel the flying sensation. On rare occasions, I did wake up. I couldn't move. But I had someone to be my guide that manifested himself here. But give me a call, by all means. I've been through this. I did it for 1 year. So no, do not be scared. You will be able to move, but it might take a few seconds. One very good example of that, before I understood astral projection, or I'm now saying it was abductions too, I was flying and I had a fan going on around, as most people do, over their head in Florida anyway. And I was scared the fan was going to cut my head off. And I asked my guide, he said, no, absolutely not. I also had that jerking sensation and I hit a wall when I came back. This scared me. He said, just ask that you don't want to hit the wall. I never got that again. So no question, if I was calling into somebody, not my guide, and asking, I think they would think I was absolutely crazy. But I got very good answers. So please call in with any question. Thank you.
I have a question. There was an owl outside my window this morning singing. What does that mean? Is that somebody coming forward, and do you know who that would be?
Okay, my first feeling about that is yes, because animals, they can pick up on, this is what I'm hearing, on spirits. So yes, just like I'm doing, an animal is very, because it's not, so to speak, have all these problems that we have on Earth. They're just worried about their next meal and is someone going to love them. But that owl, I believe, was taken for that few minutes from a spirit and was able to do that. They were giving you a message and that owl was singing to you. Can I tell you right now who it was? I feel that it was this is what I'm feeling, Dawn. The spirit of this person entered the owl. It was do you have a grandfather that passed?
Yes.
Okay, I feel that it was your grandfather letting you know, knowing, because they can see into our future, that you would be on this show and he's guiding me now, that you would ask this question. That's why the owl you thought was singing. Yes, it was talking to you for me to tell you. And something up there is blinking like crazy, and I've never seen that before. They're doing that. It was your grandfather coming to you with a specific question. I feel that you ask him sometimes. Am I correct with that?
All the time.
Okay, that's what I'm getting. He hears you, Dawn. And that blinking now has actually stopped. He hears you. And he knew, as far as the best that I can tell you, that you were going to ask me this and I would be able to validate that for him and for you. Okay, just know that he's around you. And whatever questions you are asking him, he hears you. He hears you. Don't stop.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you spoke about spirits entering animals to give messages. Do you ever get messages from animals that have passed?
Absolutely. My little dog Sabrina, who passed about 2.5 years ago, she used to love those little, what we call salamanders, I believe in Florida. They're like tiny little lizards. She was a Cavalier who was a hunting dog, so she used to run around them. So she knew that I would know if she came back to give me a message, I would see one of those little lizards, so to speak, but they're tiny. And around her bowl for nearly 2 months after she passed, where I used to have her food, was a little salamander that never left. She was giving me that. I mean, from everything that I know that was her trying to tell me that she was okay. I loved her, and she knew that. That love, even for an animal, never dies. It never dies. Love doesn't die. It just changes form.
I have a question. When a loved one dies, initially you feel them around a lot, and you're getting feelings from them, whether it's a smell, a sensation, you dream about them. But then as time goes, it seems to become less and less. In my experience. Could you give me any insight into that?
Well, I think initially, is it Linda? Linda, hi Linda, nice to meet you. Okay, Linda, I think in the beginning, they're so wanting you to know that they are around you. So I actually used to get, when this first started, tremendous smells, beautiful perfumes. I started to paint. I know you don't know my story, but I was drawing, having never had, being able to draw. But when I used to draw, I got this tremendous smell of beautiful perfume. It seemed to be every time. So they're just in the beginning trying to let you know that they're there. Just like here, they're not with you 24 hours a day, but it's very important in the beginning. So my answer to that question is they have not left you, but then don't know that they haven't left you. So if there's someone that you want to contact, you can do this just like I'm doing it, but just ask and talk to them just like if they were here. Just say, are you around? I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to mention something to you. Continue. And I think that you will definitely get however they showed you in the beginning, be it a smell or a feeling, that will reoccur. Does that help you a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm always fascinated by Aldo and that you had a walking guide. So is there an unspoken rule book, like they cannot tell you? Because you said he couldn't tell you who he was.
Okay, I love that question too, because yes, he came to me when I was ready, Dawn, but he didn't want to lead me. He was there basically for me to see what was happening and to give me the answers that I needed. So there is, and he used to tell me that later on because he was with me for 18 years, that there is a law of some kind, which, again, we have free will, but he stuck to that. I had to figure out in my mind what was happening to me. I was drawing, so I asked him later to interpret my drawings. He didn't lead me, and he only appeared when I was ready. He came into my dream, as you know. Just to backtrack a little bit, the first night that this happened, I had that flying sensation, not knowing what in the world was happening, because my viewers know more than what I knew at that point. I didn't know. I just felt that I was traveling somewhere. He was in my dream. Had he have said to me, I'm here, I'm guiding you, I came into your dream, that would have scared me, and I might not have continued. I thought I didn't know anything. But gradually, little by little, and we became best friends, of course, for many years, he waited for me to ask him and then would proceed with the answers that I was ready to hear. He used to tell me, and this is also very, very important, little by little, because our mind is trained in a certain way to understand what we're doing, and my poetry showed me that. We're trying to think of a different way for our mind to understand this. So you can't get it all at once. I think we would explode. So over a period of time, I began to hear and listen and see things. I was fortunate because he was in my life. That did help me tremendously. But we all have people, we all have guides. It's up to us to listen.
Again, I'd like to invite the audience to please call in with their questions at 888-994-4995 Studio A. And if you'd like a private reading from Sally, it's call me Zena 1111@gmail.com.
Thank you, Steve. And as my viewers know at this point, I can answer questions and I talk, quote, say from them. And I hear, when I bring myself back, it's bringing me back into our world. So it was great that you just did that. Thank you. And we're going to break for a commercial. See you back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. We have many more things in store. Thank you.
A true story, Call Me Zena, is the telling of Sally Bernard. Born in London, England at the end of the Second World War, she came to the U.S. in 1979. A mother of two and grandmother of four, she settled in Florida and worked in real estate. While going through a difficult time in her life, she was admitted into a hospital overnight in December of 2005. While settling back into her life, she began having vivid dreams and documenting them. By the third dream, a lady gave her a message to draw. With no artistic background or interest in art or history, Sally listened to her dreams and grabbed paper and crayons. Today, she has over 150 pieces of inspiring art and poetry. This book follows her journey and interpretations of these messages. She describes in detail how she's able to astral project and who she has met along her travels, including her spirit guides. This book will show you how anything is possible with an open mind. These events have changed Sally's life's direction, and this book will show you how to change yours. Purchase Call Me Zena on Amazon today.
This world, this life, this illusion. What is going on, we ask? What is happening? Why not take time and see what is happening? This world as we know it, it seems so real and yet so far away from where we've come. Corruption, greed, anger, power, revenge. Please wake up. We can change what is around us. How, we may ask? Learn to go back to where we were. Then we will have the clues. Then we can change and go forward. Please take the time. Do not fall into the game which we have put upon ourselves. We can change. We can make a difference. We have the power, each and every one of us. Go in peace. Go with love. Go as one. Zena. You have been watching Call Me Zena with your host, Sally Bernard. As an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer, know that you could always seek me out for resources. Visit artbysallybernard.com today. Now, back to the show. Okay, we're on the second half of my show. We're open for questions. Anybody in the audience or anybody that wants to call in, I'm sitting here ready to answer. Do you have a question in the audience here in the studio?
Yes, Sally.
Hello?
We find ourselves at different points in our lives where we go through transitions. And as we get older, the transitions seem a little harder, especially for life changes. I was wondering if you had any insight into that. And we're presented with many different options about which path to choose. And sometimes we just don't know which way to go.
Well, from what my answer to that is go, and I've said this on the show, go with your first instinct. It's like, they say your gut instinct. That actually is true to a certain extent. Go with what you feel. If you feel sometimes, and this is how I judge things sometimes, if I'm planning my day or maybe week, and I'm very positive, and that's my, I talk about being positive, but, I'm still here in this 3D. So if many things seem to not be going the way that I feel that I'm planning them, I think it's time to just step back and think, well, maybe this isn't what I'm necessarily meant to be doing. Because we all have a built-in instinct, so to speak. So if everything continues, although we do bring that with negativity, we say everything's going wrong in my day, which I don't say this, and you will find everything will go wrong. But having not said that, and it's still happening, I think we need to look back, take a step backwards and think maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing today. Let's have another look at this, if that helps a little bit. Stop and think for a minute, because we have a built-in radar, so to speak, and that's very important if we listen to it. Most of us don't. I didn't for many years. But today I do, because I'm very aware of it. And the first thing that I can tell you is to be aware. Just know that we have this. Even if you don't believe it, just know that it is there.
Sadly, an opportunity comes up almost every day in the media business. And you sort of have to pick and choose what it is that you want to accomplish. But more than that is that you can't be afraid to succeed, and you can't be afraid not to succeed. So what would you say about people who have a different idea? Something's come up, and they worry about whether or not they should do something. Should you just do something and go with it and trust your instincts? Or do you don't do it because other people told you it's not a good idea? How do you pick and choose?
Okay, I love what you said, because this is what I always will answer. Trust your instincts. Really, if you start listening to people, that's a lot of different things coming in. One person may say yes, one person may say no. We begin to get confused. I'm doing this, my show, with my instincts. I'm being led to say these things. It's my gut instinct that's telling me to say that. So I'm going to go with my gut. Know that we have the answers. I even say that in the poems that I read many years ago. We have them all within ourselves. If it's not going to work out and we're feeling that, then stop and think.
but initially go with your first instinct. It doesn't matter what someone else is saying. That's not you. We are all on different paths. Does that make sense to you? And you know my guides ask them that way.
No, it makes sense because I've been trying to jump on something different that I've never done before. Because I asked all the producers in here and everybody, including Dawn, if we're going to do something, let's do something outside of our comfort zone. But I want to put myself now to the same test. So we're talking about doing a movie in here. And I think it's an exciting time. And so far, everything I've heard is, it's a lot of this and it's a lot of that and it's a lot of this. And of course it is. Otherwise, everybody would make a movie, correct?
Absolutely, Freddie. And I am, as you're saying this, I'm so guided to tell you, go with what you feel is right. Really, as best that I can tell you, you won't go wrong. Try not to, everybody has a different point of view. We're all individuals and we all have free will. Only you know your path. And if you feel comfortable with what you're saying, and I certainly feel very comfortable, in answer to that, if I may put my little bit of what I know coming into you to tell you that, I feel very comfortable with what you had just said. But it's still not up to me. I can tell you what I'm hearing. It's still ultimately up to you what you choose. Yes, I'm not saying disregard what people tell you, but stick to what we would say, what we feel. Stick to that, okay? And you're going to get, many people might say yes, many people might say no. Ultimately, the choice is yours. Doesn't matter what yes, it's nice to hear suggestions, but you have the answers for your journey. And that's very important to keep that in mind.
And your message of positivity that you've been preaching goes very strongly there, and that is what I've always been taught is if you think you can or if you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Steve. Yes, exactly. There's so much truth in that. In other words, don't get off your path, your track. If you feel you're on a certain way, and again, you will get the answers that I had mentioned before. If something being positive and it continues still to go wrong with your positive attitude, step back for a minute. It might not be the right time. We have different timelines. And again, I'm going to say that could be a different show. Mm-hmm. But be true to yourself. I love that. Be true to yourself. No matter what anybody else is telling you, they're not you. They have their journey too. They also need to be true to themselves.
Right. And Tracy writes in, how do I find out my spirit guides' names?
Okay, well, again, that's I got my name, Zena, from my guide. I'm hearing, call yourself Zena. It's like a radar that we have. Not everybody can hear that. But the best way, you can ask me. I'd be happy, maybe I can pick up your spirit guide. But we can do it ourselves too. If a name comes to you or you feel a certain name, we will get validation. Sometimes I say a name, I'll turn the television on and there is that name. That's them helping me. So there's many ways that we get validation. The most important is to be open to this, is to believe it and know that you will get the validation on that. So that might be the way your spirit guide might come into you, for you.
Katie writes, do you believe in reincarnation?
If there was a 101%, that would be my answer. Did I always feel that way? Absolutely not. It's only over the last, say, 25 years. I've had too much validation for me to deny this. At the fact that I was drawing buildings and signs and symbols from the Renaissance Center that I had not seen. I'm drawing things that I'd never been able to draw anything, and suddenly I'm drawing, not from this lifetime, but from a few hundred years ago, and even going further back than that. Actually, I'm drawing from I won't go into that. There's a different show which we can talk about on Russ's program with the UFOs, but I'm going back further and further into the past where I'm drawing things too. Mm-hmm. So yes, how do you explain that? For me, I had not seen these things in this lifetime, so obviously for me, it's 100% true that reincarnation exists. We come back many, many times.
And speaking of your art, many of your pieces have faces and even more eyes, just eyes. To what do you attribute your, desire to present eyes?
I go with what I would say, go with the flow, okay? And as I was doing this, again, I was lucky enough to have someone, my guide here from other lifetimes, here to guide me and tell me what, he didn't say, draw this. I had drawn it and then he would interpret it, so it had much more meaning. The one behind you actually is what he told me was my family from the Renaissance Center, which has a lot of faces in it, a lot of eyes. But people will interpret, because I have so much detail, they'll interpret it each differently how they see it. But for me, it was validation of what I was seeing from other lifetimes in my beginning drawings and some of my artwork.
Thank you. And again, if you'd like a private reading from Sally, please contact her at callmezena1111@gmail.com.
Thank you, and I'd happy to talk about previous lives, whatever your question is. And again, let me tell you, any question, a question is a question, and it always has an answer. So please call in.
Sally, another question.
That's fine.
Other dimensions, the dimensions that the spirit guides are on, and they say that they're, this is what I've heard,
Okay.
that they're right here. These dimensions are within reach, but we just can't see them. Could you elaborate on that?
That's actually correct. Again, I got a lot of my information from my guide here, was on a much higher dimension than where we are. We're on the 3rd dimension. We gradually go to the 4th, and then we're planning on going to the 5th dimension. But they're around us. I would look up and say, while he was here, Aldo was my spirit, my guide's name, and he'd say, why are you looking up? And I'd say, well, isn't that where the dimensions are? He said, no, they're all around us, and I feel that. So if you want to talk to someone, a departed loved one, or someone on a higher dimension, you bring them in. They're here in the studio right now. Just because we don't see them doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I have trained myself over the years now to hear and feel. I don't necessarily see people, I hear them. I can draw them and I can draw buildings, but it's a telepathy, but they're able to do that with us. So everything is around us. They don't leave us. We just think it's higher up because I can say the 5th, 6th dimension is higher. It's just a different dimension where we think differently, and we've graduated, so to speak, to that dimension.
And how does one graduate from dimension to dimension?
With difficulty. Okay, we're here in our what we know as the 3D. Okay, we're gradually going to the 4th, which I had explained, to the 5th dimension. But this is it's a difficult dimension. It's the 3rd dimension where we have to go through a lot of what we call karma, and we're learning. This is what I had called, and I heard this directly after my show. It's a hard show. The school of, I think you'd say in America, I'm English, of hard knocks, okay, but it probably applies in England too. So we learn. This is it's a difficult place, but this is what we have to do to graduate, because we can't take with us a lot of the things that we have here to graduate to the 4th and 5th dimension. We have to do a clearing. Now that doesn't happen overnight. It is, but we don't know it's overnight. It could be many, many lifetimes. We have what we call karma, which we choose to be able to graduate. So if we haven't worked through something, which I had mentioned before, it will still come back in this dimension. A different scenario, but the same exact thing that we need to learn. But it may present itself in a different way here, but it will still have that same learning significance. So yes, we have to graduate here to get to the next dimension. Sorry, but that's how it works.
So, and when I do, I can't take my iPhone with me, is that correct?
Oh, you're going to have much more than an iPhone there. Okay, the technology is amazing. You have no idea what the technology is. Okay, that's just the very beginning.
This might seem like a silly question, but
No question, Sue.
okay, I was born Roman Catholic, so we believe in heaven. Is heaven another dimension?
Love that,
Okay.
because I know heaven and hell, okay? It's actually, we can bring heaven here, actually. It's what we perceive. Heaven is love, let's say that. It's just a terminology, it's a name. I don't like to, because we do have religion here, so I don't like to say that this doesn't exist. It exists, but in a different form than what we're taught, because we're taught mainly certain way. Okay, that's okay. I mean, it's good to have a belief, but there are many different answers to that same scenario. So in order to
be able to understand that. We have to listen, so to speak, to a lot of different points of view. Heaven is around us. Heaven is here. But it probably, from what I'm hearing, it's a higher dimension, because love is the answer. And heaven is love.
Sally, I'm curious, if we're all here to learn more, to get into that dimension where the end game is what?
Okay, this is, I answer most questions. I don't know the end game. I'm going to call it source. We can be here 1,000 years. I even asked my guide that, when do we graduate? Okay, he had many explanations for me when we finally got it, but I can't tell you the end of that journey. It can go on for lifetime after lifetime. Again, so we think we're only here for a limited amount of time, and we come back. I'm going to call it, because I don't take God out of this scenario, I call it God's source, Christ consciousness. That's our end game, and then we see the ultimate. But I can't give you a specific answer, and I don't know even if I want to even understand that right now, because I'm still on my journey. I just know that love is the answer. And not the love that we see here. It's an unconditional love. It's not what it's a feeling, it's a sensation. And I haven't gone that far right now. I can only go to a certain point, which is higher dimensions, where we're learning each time.
Well, we're surrounded by people who are at different stages of achieving that dimension.
Yes, we're all on individual journeys here. So basically, in order to, let's go from the third to the fifth dimension, okay, we have to graduate. So we can't take what we call our problems that we have here with us. We have to live out all these scenarios in different ways, because when we get to the next dimension, and it's hard to even visualize that, we're not going to have, so to speak, taking all our problems with us. It will create other ones because we're on a learning experience. But I think ultimately we have to learn forgiveness here, gratitude, all the things that we know that we should be doing, but we don't. I mean, take for instance, there's always a war going on somewhere. We have to get rid of all this, and then we can graduate. And everybody is at different stages of their journey in order to learn that. But we do graduate, absolutely.
But then, Sally, we're living our life based on those who decide our fate. So how does that work? In other words, I can be doing all the right things or learning all the things that I want to learn, but my fate is still going to be held by somebody else who may have no learning experience going on.
Actually, I love that question, Freddie, because my immediate answer is, you are the person that's choosing this. We don't have recollection. We plan our life. So you may think you're turning that over to somebody else, but ultimately, if we haven't learned, our fate is in our hands. Our fate is in our hands. That's coming through very strongly to us. To me, certainly. So if we're doing something and we're on a track that we say, well, what is the outcome? We have that amazing ability to choose our outcome. If we're not ready, we also have that choice. A little voice inside us is saying, no, you haven't learned that lesson completely. Other obstacles are going to come in, or whatever it is. But we have that choice. We are on our journey. And if we haven't ultimately, and then people call that karma, finish that, we will continue it in another lifetime and another lifetime. But it's our choice. We have free will, but it is our choice to graduate, to get rid of whatever that situation is. Eventually, it will come in different scenarios until we get it right. I'm absolutely certain of that.
You talked about the law of attraction. Okay, what can you tell people to begin to concentrate on, to study, if you will? I'm thinking about Esther and Jerry.
Hicks, yeah.
I'm thinking about Sylvia Brown or Edgar Casey. What would you tell people to begin to study, to look for?
With the law of attraction?
Absolutely.
Well, because we're energy, Russ, so we put out our energy. It's like a radio station. If we want to listen to a particular radio station, we turn that dial. We used to have, let's say, AM and FM, which I remember. So, well, I'm sure we still do, but we don't listen that much to the radio anymore. We're tuning in. So once we understand that, I mean, for me and for Steve, who is my husband, has seen this. The amount of people that I have met here in the Brooklyn Cafe, and you being one of them, especially Russ, you are, I am attracting, and you are attracting that energy. Now that energy has to be put somewhere. It seems to be here where we are at the Brooklyn Cafe. I mean, can you deny that? You can see the
Absolutely
people
not.
that we are attracting. Hope Freddie and Dawn can feel that. It's a meeting place. So because we're energy, we're zooming in, so to speak, to the people that should be coming here. And for me, I understand it a little bit more, but you're seeing it. You can see that, which is a good question for maybe you to answer.
Yes,
here.
and that energy is visible to us everywhere we go. Like when we were in Key West, and when we were just at a restaurant the other night, and we're walking to the car, and this woman and her boyfriend or her husband or whatever were looking up at the alignment of the moon and Jupiter and Venus, and you started talking to that woman, and she said she felt your energy, and it's all around us.
It's all around us, and we have, without going maybe into the whole scenario of what happened in Key West, but a completely strange couple came to us, and this lady starts talking the way that I am, because she was drawn to us. I mean, there was a little bit more, which was make it even more strange, actually. But she recognized me, and I recognized her in Duval Street, if anybody knows Key West, which was crowded with people. We zoomed in together immediately, and you saw that firsthand. And you really hadn't started your journey with me that much at that point. It was a couple of months of knowing me. But you can't deny that. It's there. The best thing for people that are listening, please be aware of this. Keep an open mind, believe, and just know, for my final message, that anything is possible. It's possible if you believe it. Without that belief, it can just go by you. But keep an open mind and believe. It happens. It's happened to me, and you've seen that. I have a long way still to go. Beautiful miracles are happening.
A moment ago, I mentioned that picture that I took of the moon and Venus and Jupiter aligned perfectly one under the other. Is there any message the universe is sending us when something like that happens?
Well, it's all in alignment, but then many people will just look up and say, isn't that beautiful? But yes, there is a message, because there's so much going on, which I will talk with Ross about, which is a lot with, I refer to the UFOs, which I'm gradually bringing into my show, because it's all part and parcel of the same thing. They're showing us the miracle of the alignment. To go into it more deeply would be a longer show. But yes, there's a message in everything we see. The key is to not overlook it, to just look at it and say, everything around us is basically a miracle. We're making this happen. We can't all go around and say, I'm having a beautiful day. There are times when my day isn't that beautiful, but I still try to remain positive, because it's going to turn around. If I feed into the fact that I'm having a bad day, it will continue. The universe only knows what we're putting out. Thank you.
How does one really concentrate and tap into the spirits that are around us, the guides, and get that kind of direction and support?
Okay, from what I know and what happened to me, we have signs, which I write in my poetry too, before I understood this. The signs, the symbols, everything is around us. We block a lot of this. Mm-hmm. If we don't block it and walk around and just know that there is more, we don't have to know the answer. We just need to know that there is more. You will find eventually, and it can take time, but there is really no time, that you will start seeing things happen to you that you can't say are coincidence. I believe in saying nothing that I've experienced is coincidence today. But it took a little while. I'm going, well, that's strange. How did that happen? But today, my first reaction is, this is not coincidence, because they're helping us. They want us to open up. They want us to hear them, see them, or whatever you feel that you can do as far as being able to contact them. They want this. They want us to know, because there's so much more that we need to know. So much.
There must be some specific training that one can do. To become a Sylvia Brown, to become an Edgar Casey, could
Well-
become like Esther and Jerry.
I think it's wanting. I actually have what we would call no specific training, although I had my guide. I was ready. I believe that I've done this in other lifetimes. It's a feeling. We're not all ready. I do want people to know that. We're not all ready to open up completely. But our journeys continue in each lifetime. So whatever we learn in this lifetime, it will stay with us. As my guide used to say, we have a subconscious, we have a superconsciousness. And into that superconsciousness holds all the memory of what's going on. Now, for instance, just to talk about myself, I had this memory of even more than I know now in the 15th century. But he was able to tell me that I had so much responsibility in that lifetime that I blocked it for the next few lifetimes. It didn't leave me. It started again in this lifetime, and I've opened up completely to what I was experiencing in that 15th century. I'm not different to other people. It just depends when we're ready. We're ready. I believe that most people here on Earth, where we are now, as it is a difficult lifetime here, and lifetimes, have chosen this, that have I can't tell you for sure, but a lot of us that are here in Earth have reincarnated many, many times. And we're all trying to graduate.
What do you think your role now is from now on until you leave the planet? What do you hope to do?
What, I'm sorry?
What do you hope to do? What do you hope to accomplish?
I hope to accomplish what I have learned to be able to spread this message, Russ. And I love that question because we will be working together too. Because I'm able to give messages to people. I also like to know why we're here, why people want to know why they're here, and that there is so much more. I introduced the UFO a little bit in my story because it's all part and parcel of this, because we go back thousands and thousands of years without going in, because that's a different show. I want people to experience some of what I am opening up to. And the way that I can do that is through the media, through people calling in, asking me questions. I validate this because I'm able to be a psychic and give them answers. Where am I hearing this from? I'm usually pretty accurate with my answers. I don't know, but I know that I can do this now, and I'm getting much more learning into how they're coming to me. So basically, that's where I'm at. So,
Sally, is it important to know why, or is it important to use what you've learned in a positive way?
it's not necessarily important to know why. It's important to continue this journey and keep an open mind. You don't have to understand it all. That comes with what we call time. There is no time, but we have to open up. And you can't get it all in one day. You can't. I didn't. I'm in my 18th year of this, and other lifetimes too. This is where I am today.
And Russ, just like you mentioned Esther and Jerry Hicks, I know there's, the future will hold the fact that people will be talking about Sally Bernard as well, in the same vein.
Thank you, Steve, because that's how I spread my word. When I'm long gone, hopefully people will tune into my radio stations. We've got about many of them now. Me spreading my message. I can't get this all out in one day. There's no way. But I do need people to listen to me and ask me questions so that I can help them on their journey.
Steve, let me ask you a question. You know, you've studied Jerry Hicks, Esther.
I'm in the process.
Right, I know. What kind of message would you pass on to the people that is, as you know it?
Well, just be open to possibilities.
Mm. Don't we have to pick up that material to kind of look at it?
We do.
Okay.
We do, and the material has to be put in front of us. Sometimes, people. Well, I'll just put it this way: there are three kinds of people in this world. There are people that make things happen. Mm-hmm. There are people that watch things happen, and then there are the others who stand around and say, "What happened?" You can't be somebody that makes things happen unless you delve into it and learn, and that's what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm.
Sally, before we wrap up, when people come to you for a private reading, what types of readings will you do?
Anything that they choose to ask me, any questions, I can go back, so to speak, in time. I can answer questions about what's going on in the universe. I can answer personal questions that they may have, of also where do we go after we we pass from this. Whatever, again, no question is, it's here. Ask me the question. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. You know, I never rehearse this show. I do not want to know the questions. I'm much better when I'm just presented them when I'm sitting here. I do the same in a reading. I like them to ask me a question because I get the answers from my guides. But mainly I'm able to answer most questions that people ask me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder for a private reading, message Sally at callmezena1111.com, and please tune in every Monday at 3 o'clock to Call Me Zena.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody here in the studio for making this show possible in the studio. Thank you. Coincidence or not, it's time to trust your intuition and knowings. Thank you for joining me through this journey of self-discovery and awakening with the help of my spirit guides. I'm Sally Bernard, and you can find my book, artwork, and contact through artbysallybernard.com. Join us next week. This has been Call Me Zena.